Underway. Welcome everybody to the January 9th, since it's 2003 on this slide, 2024, sorry, 23. Meeting the Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee. I'm the chair, John Davey. We have Vice Chair Tim White, Vice Chair Brooke Washburn's online. I don't see if John Resler is in there. We have Bob Williams, Secretary, is right here. Those are our officers. I see Raz as a guest, but Raz is online. John Resler is online too. So we have a bunch of members online. We have some members in the room. So we're going to get going, get the show on the road. The very first thing we do is we call the meeting to order. There's 2024 there, that's shocking. And the adoption of our meeting agenda. So if there's no objections or any change requests.
I have.
Okay.
Okay, and then not so much a change request, just a quick update since it's not listed.
Yeah.
Just received a call from Andy Nevis, the chairman of the Planning Commission.
Yes.
Wanting more information about the investigation and the comments we made as a group on the cell tower request from Verizon. The question that he asked is that if anybody has any direct comments or any information as to the kind of service that they've experienced or loss of service, that the commission really wants to know about those issues. I've already reached out to the fire department to see if there's been any kind of emergency call drops. There apparently has not been any kind of issue that has been surfaced on that. But anyway, they'll be meeting to decide on the 25th of this month. So if you have any kind of comments or issues, I guess I'm acting as kind of the filter on that one. So get back to me and I will pass that on to the commission.
And Bob's email, like all our emails, is at the top of our agenda. And if you don't see them on the agenda or can't find the agenda, you can email it to info@edhapac.org and we'll disseminate and get it to people who are working on these projects. So if there's no other changes, we do have an addition at the end of our agenda tonight. We published this agenda, I want to say, on Tuesday, and then subsequent to that, EDH CSD had released their notice of preparation, their draft environmental impact report for the Bass Lake Regional Park. Instead of editing our agenda and distributing it again, we're just going to keep it as sort of an update to let you know that that meeting's taking place, what the details are. And Jeff's here tonight. Seaferry is on the board. He's here tonight. But I would encourage everybody to attend that scoping meeting. It's right here in El Dorado Hills. So, moving along. As we begin our meeting, this is an opportunity for public comment for any matter that's not on our agenda tonight. So if it's not one of the projects or the topics that we have, we open up here in the room first, and then we'll go to Zoom. If anybody wants to raise their hand, they can see, they could get in and we'll call on you after we work the room. And so is there anybody here in the room that has any public comment for things that are not on our agenda today? Everyone wants to go home on time tonight. That's awesome. And is there any hands going up from our attendees? I don't see. Oh, John Resler or John, I think. Let's see. How can I do this from here? Sorry, I'm trying to get it. Oh, John Richards. Thank you.
For those of you who can't see, he has 3 different strings going at the same time.
Yeah, there's it's hard to drive and talk. So let me see if I can do a smaller list. What I'll do is I'll stop the share and that way I can see it better from here. Here, John has popped up on here. And no, he's right over here.
Okay.
John, you should be able to unmute now.
All right, I think I'm unmuted.
You are perfectly loud and clear.
I just wanted to say hi. I've been having problems with talking and raising my hand on some of this Zoom software, and I deleted my old software and put new software in, and apparently it's working. That's good to go. So I just, want to check in with you guys. One thing I want to mention is that I was at a meeting at Marshall about their new facility that they're going to build right here in El Dorado Hills. Not build, but take over the old portion of the Blue Cross Blue Shield building, and that is moving ahead. And they've also been contacted by UC Davis about those plans that the UC Davis has to build right on our border. On something like 2,000 to 3,000 homes and other facilities that will deal with seniors, helping seniors stay in place. So we have to really keep an eye on that. So, okay, just checking to make sure that I can join the meeting, and then if I have to jump in, that you guys can hear me. Good to see all of you tonight.
Hey, John, I didn't quite catch what you said. You said there's an additional several thousand homes for seniors, or is this a part of the,
JKT.
or the ATT?
Yeah,
ATH
yeah.
project?
It's
Okay,
something
very
that
good.
nobody.
Okay, I didn't know whether we had yet another one.
No, it's the same one, but apparently whatchamacallit, UC Davis has contacted Marshall Hospital and asked them to kind of join with them in the planning and the talking about that future development.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's the same one, yes.
So, John, we'll ask some questions since you're on the horn here. When you were at the meeting for Marshall, did they anticipate when they're going to open that new facility in the old Blue Shield building?
They have plans on what they want to put there, but they're still waiting for permits and other kinds of things. And I would suspect it's going to take a while before they do get permission to start work. But they have everything going. They're waiting now to get permission to start on the plans that they have. So I would say probably in the near future.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for keeping us up to date. Okay, are there any other hands up in there? I don't see any. So moving along from public comment, we remind everybody, I should probably put on the, I'll just say it out loud. Remind everyone that everyone that lives in El Dorado Hills is already a member of APAC. If you want to be a voting member of APAC, and I want you to be a voting member of APAC, you do that by volunteering to work on a project review or a subcommittee. And to do that, even if you don't think, well, I've never done that before, APAC members, existing members can help you learn about the process that we follow. And I say it every time, we all learned how to do it from somebody else. It's entirely possible if you come in and help us, you'll find a better way to do it. And we would welcome that assistance. So.
After John having said that, we got about 50,000 residents in El Dorado Hills. Anyone under 18 is probably not going to want to be a member of APAC or wouldn't understand it. But when you only have about 15 voting members and you got about 30,000 eligible people in the community, we would like to see more activity, because you can't depend on just 15 people to keep doing it over and over and over again. We need new ideas, new people, new thoughts to come on and volunteer. And I know we have a very active senior community, and I'd love to get the benefit of some of those seniors that are retired and maybe looking to see what they want to do in retirement and spend some of their time volunteering on APAC matters.
Yeah. And so in full disclosure too, on voting members, we don't vote a lot. So once or twice a year, maybe, unless there's a lot of projects, or if we need to vote to, as a group, to authorize perhaps communication. But really, it's just the amount of time you want to invest. If you're not able to make every meeting, we'll cut you some slack. So moving forward, the next item on our agenda tonight, number 4, supervisor communications. And this is an odd night for us. We're normally here on Wednesdays, so that we have the advantage of the Board of Supervisors possibly being available today. They had their normal Tuesday board meeting. It's the Supervisor Heidal's here tonight, and Supervisor Turnbull had expressed that it was going to be tough for him to be here on, to make the meeting. But John, you're here tonight. Thank you for coming in and making your day even longer. You have the
Okay.
microphone and take it away.
Yeah, and so I'm going to make this very short. One item. Today, the Board of Supervisors reviewed the recommendation by DOT relative to a 5-year update on the projection for residential growth and jobs growth. It's the first time we got very extensive data because we requested in an earlier review that staff go back and really show us year by year trend data. So we now have data on historical employment, non-residential employment that goes back to 2000. So you can really see the impact very clearly of the 2008, 2009 recession and the lack of recovery. But an important thing to note with respect to the employment data is the way they use it is they look at, it's based upon the square feet of new commercial property. If there's no new commercial properties being built, they're assuming there's no employment, which is way off base from where we are in today's world with respect to people working from home. You're taking smaller or larger facilities and you're subdividing it. You get a lot more employees in the same kind of workspace and you convert warehouse basically to office space. None of those things are in their calculations. So we've asked them to, in the future, to take more time to really look at what's the data telling us as opposed to some very high level assumptions. They may have been good 20 years ago. They're not very good today. So we also looked at growth rate. There were some substantial changes there. And I have, the data is available through the county website. The one thing I thought also interesting was that they were looking at the annual residential number of permits on a current basis, and 2022 is the last part of the data. It was 476. You go back to the 2004 general plan, they were expecting 30,000 new households over a 20-year period. Well, that 20-year period is getting pretty close to being finished, right? And there's nowhere near that. Which would be 1,500 a year, and we actually saw 476 in 2022. So from that perspective, we're down at about 1/3 of what the general plan projected growth. So the bottom line of all this stuff is it varies year to year, and you really have to try to anticipate on a 20-year projection where you're going to be, and that's not a very good estimate. Bottom line, likewise, is that the Board of Supervisors approved a 0.62% rate of growth for both residential housing and for jobs. Mention one other, there's a table that talks about what was the actual growth rate in El Dorado Hills versus other communities. And the actual growth rate in El Dorado Hills over the period from 2018 to 2022 was 3.3%. No other district, no other area got much over 1%. So you can tell where the growth is occurring. So those numbers I think are realistic and they present the proper perspective. So just good data, but we did approve based upon the current analysis, those two growth rates, and it affects how much funding we put into the TIF fee, which collects funds to pay for roads, right? Not road maintenance, new capital road improvements. So when you pick a number that is too low in terms of growth rate, you're not collecting enough money to pay for the roads. When you collect it, and when you get a number that's too high, you're over collecting presumably, but I made the point, I've never seen that in El Dorado County that we collect too much money to pay for new roads. We're always seem to be short, but anyway, that's the one item I wanted to bring forward.
John, it'd be terrific things to post in our
Yeah.
APAC.
Yeah, it was in the board agenda,
Yeah.
the slides.
Yeah.
You can grab
But
those.
it's the first time we've gotten that kind of detailed
First
data,
to post out
at least that I've been.
committees.
And I know that in the past, there's always been sort of, I don't want to say a challenge, but a different thought from the perspective of folks in El Dorado Hills in terms of, we see the development you're sort of ending up that's in the chart. And we'd always said, well, the county, the overall rate for the county is one number, but you can't put that onto every community because, there's not a lot of growth in Somerset, but there's a lot of growth. How do you break it out? Is it responsible to analyze it like that? It sounds like there's better numbers.
Right.
And that I think at least the supervisors are informed that way.
The numbers here were only community regions.
Yeah.
But when you look at the lowest number, Placerville as a community region had 0.1% growth over 4 years. So anyway.
All right. So let's go to Commissioner. Are there any questions about that from there? Oh, Steve's got his hand up. Do you have a microphone nearby that you can? Oh, there he's throwing one at you. As long as you're green. Okay. And that way people online can hear you. Just press it, turn screen, then you let it go.
Let it go when it turns green.
There we go.
Yeah.
Recently just read in a Wall Street Journal article about sheets versus El Dorado County. And I'm curious about, because when you're speaking about this, it's depending upon mitigation fees to get things done. That lawsuit, which is at the Supreme Court of the United States, could
Right.
eliminate this. Is there any discussion at all about where we go from here?
That I'm aware of.
That was at the Supreme Court today.
And there has not been a final ruling.
They're
We're just
saying it's gonna be,
taking testimony.
yeah,
Yeah.
June is the
Yeah.
expected, if then. So. Oh, you got it?
Well, just to that, I listened to about a half an hour of the Pacific Legal's argument. I mean, just what they were, not at the court, just what they were stating. And what they're saying, and I think a lot is confused of what is out there. They're frustrated because the person that filed the lawsuit asked for a nexus and the county didn't give him one. So he's asking, and then when he went to court, they didn't require him, the government, to give him a nexus. And so he's asking for a nexus, which makes a lot of sense, to be able to have that heard in court. And that's what I got out of the first half hour of their explanation. And so it's not what everybody thinks, that it's this whole thing that's gonna blow everything up. It just sounds like he wants the opportunity to come back and say, how is this being distributed fairly? Just a FYI.
Yeah, I followed Pacific Legal Foundation. They had like a Twitter stream going. So that's how I could kind of peek at it, but that's about all I could keep up with today. So yeah, there's a lot of questions about
I have
the
another hour to.
equity and and much like the Austin case, has that nexus been done? Is it applicable to what its impact is? So I guess it's out of everyone's hands that is here in this room. We'll hear about it maybe in June, maybe a little later.
Doesn't sound like it's gonna make a lot of difference, because it sounds like he's gonna have to go back to court, because he's asking for this issue to be heard in court.
I heard the same thing. It might be sent back to the appeals court level for a
Yeah, if
decision.
the Supreme-
We'll see. Yeah.
Standing by. Hey, John, you look like you should be able to talk.
Okay, Supervisor Heidel, going back to the report that you just read, I happened to read part of it where it said that despite the fact that the population in our area is not expected to really grow, the number of homes that they're building is expected to grow. And I really didn't understand that. I mean, if you don't have people who live in these houses, why are they projecting a growth in the number of new homes to be built? I don't know.
The population estimate typically is 2.3 individuals per household. So I think maybe you're confusing a little bit the jobs growth versus the
No, this
housing
was-
growth.
No, this was, they specifically said that the population in California is going down, okay? And
California,
yet,
yeah.
in California, but yet the number of homes here are going up, the number of homes that are being built. And I don't understand, if you don't have people to move into those homes, why build them? I don't understand why they would even say that. I don't know. All right, yeah, I just wanted to bring that across.
A huge shortage in housing, and every time somebody leaves the state, that house gets bought pretty quickly. So I'm not sure where they're getting their statistics on that, but yeah, there is a shortage in housing across the state of California.
All right.
Whether anyone can finance it right now is the other question, but yeah.
That's exactly right. What's it
Yeah.
cost you? Yeah.
So,
Pay the
okay.
rent.
Thanks for that question, John. Okay, so if there are no other questions here, the next item on our, we have no guest speakers tonight. I'm gonna throw this up here so we can look at the screen together instead of just me. The first item we have tonight is last month we had our very first updates from our standing committees for transportation for environmental. And those folks worked for a long time on that. They're still working on it. We're going to set aside every month that we do this an opportunity for them to make a presentation, whether they have just a minor update, if they have a presentation slide to show, or if there's any details like that. But we'll go ahead and do it this way tonight. It might be minor in nature, but we do have a couple slides for transportation. Who is? Let's see. I'm looking.
I'll speak that we do have
Yeah.
two members of the Transportation Committee, one online and one here in the room, Roger Bailey,
Yeah.
and also speak to transportation. If there's anything more to augment, are you?
I'll start running the slides, but.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I think just the
let's
last
look
slide
at-
is probably the most important.
Okay. So we're gonna jump through these. Again, the committee members, and I was looking for Bill. Did you see Bill in the, because I didn't know if he's gonna be able to make it tonight.
Bill could not make it tonight,
Okay,
no.
Bill just said, let's run this tonight and, he'll update it with more changes, but, first things first tonight, we'd like to thank our committee members, our standing committee members for their work on this. And Bill's running as the chairperson, Roger's here in the room. John Resler is online, Bob's right here with us. So, next thing is that, so there's no major activity since the last meeting. Keep in mind, our last meeting was just a couple weeks ago because we were in December and we're early this month. So, it doesn't mean that there are no significant updates. They're still looking at things. And, so the way that this is their stated goal is they work with, the county to develop a proactive approach to keep APAC and the community informed of traffic impacts of built out to the area, development land to get better idea of the needed improvements on major and minor routes, utilizing the models improvements for the current roadway infrastructure. They identify and quantify traffic impacts for all proposed projects. So that way we're not having to start from scratch every time a project comes up. We have a group that has a firm basis in looking at the traffic. They're going to agree on the standard metrics and then establish engagement process with county planning, with county transportation, Colorado Hills Fire, and I believe it's board supervisor, not BSC. Voice circle. The board of supervisors to look at the impacts sort of holistically. So we're not looking at, we can't look at things piecemeal and it's informative, but we also want to have a big picture when we analyze things. So, they've had very good engagement with the Department of Transportation, with Raphael in particular, and we're hoping to foster that relationship. They've always been willing to come and talk to us, but now they're doing one-on-one sort of with the committee members, as questions and about projects or just transportation in general come up. So we're very happy to have that going on.
I have a question. I'm sorry, go back one slide. So it says, identify and quantify traffic impacts of all proposed projects. Is that also going to include potentially approved projects that have not been completed yet, that are still pending?
I would anticipate, yeah.
The goal is very clearly, Linda, to really get a handle
Right.
on even the rumors.
Right.
Obviously, last time the committee met, 2.5 weeks ago, I believe Roger's right, is that we had no idea that this AKT, thank you, proposal was actually, well, we had rumors that the thing existed for some time, but we
Right.
had no idea of the details. So what we were predicating a lot of our discussions around was what we were already informed with was happening in the business park associated with the gateway and the 1 million square foot worth of distribution centers in the business park, the wind properties proposal, and a couple of smaller ones.
Isn't there another phase of heritage too?
Yeah, that's been approved.
It's an approved project.
Right, so that's what I mean, approved projects that are not yet completed.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, exactly
So-
right. No, we have to take a look at all that.
right, okay, all right. Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
And quite frankly, that's the reason why these committees were formed. Is because I know I was going absolutely crazy trying to ascertain exactly what the impacts are. I know that looking at a couple of these things are our targets as identified for the traffic study committee. It's important for us to really understand what that really does mean to us in the future. Because it has been a piecemeal activity, and we are still trying to pull out information from developers and from the planning department and from DOT exactly what the impacts are. And the only way you can do it is citizens have to ask the questions. We decided as a citizens group to do that. We cannot really advise the planning commission nor our own constituents, and certainly the Board of Supervisors, without that information. And so that's the purpose of this committee. We now have 5 members, as you know. We need more members. And we welcome more members to that. The same might be said, and I'll go and speak to the environmental committee at the same time. George Steed could not make it. He just came back, just like Tim, from an international excursion and is trying to recover from that himself. But we will be addressing a questionnaire actually to the voting members of APAC on a couple of proposals that the environmental group believes are very essential in moving forward. Meaning, right now, we are still relying upon environmental impact studies that are 25 years old. And we have a number of proposals that are still being predicated based upon those ancient studies. Golf course, Bass Lake, town and country, certainly all the business park stuff is all going to be predicated on some of those studies. I know the wind properties are doing their own fresh EIR at this stage, but as much as we can dovetail all these issues and really look at it, because environmental issues just don't end at a division or at the Latrobe White Rock cutoffs. Birds do fly across those borders. Crossing Creek and other situations do flow up and down through this county. And we need to be able to look adequately at what all the impacts are if we're really going to legitimately make advice that's really going to be meaningful. So next month is going to be a much more extensive set of meetings, I'm sure. Melinda, you're representing also the environmental committee. Roger, you're here for transportation. Do you guys have anything else to add?
This month, right?
This month now.
Since our last meeting, yeah. It's, like we said, it's a short
That's what I'm
turnaround
saying.
since our last.
Uh-huh.
So, but you know what? And again, I keep telling Bob, no, I'm appreciating the fact that somebody's doing this because a lot of time it was 1, 2, 3 of us would be independent and we'd try to cobble something together project by project. Have sort of a basis to start from, shared knowledge, shared experience. It helps to inform us as we, look for findings and as we make recommendations, advisory comments. So I know, and this is sort of the goals. The one thing I know the transportation group had talked about, the fire department has a very good, they demoed a GIS solution where they could map projects on a map online, and you can go in and click on the map. It would open up and link to project, the project documents, whether it's in Trackit or Legistar. And I don't, it was expensive if I remember. Sorry, I did steal from it while it was online. And so we thought, well, that would be great if we could do the GIS. I've done some GIS. It was 100 years ago when it was probably with sticks and stones. At conferences and stuff, and the tools, some of the tools are expensive. Some of them, if you can get the data from the county, from the assessor's office for the parcel information, if we could. So there is an open source GIS solution. I've been looking at it, but I mean, you gotta learn it before you can drive it. And then at that point, it might be advisable. We could talk to somebody in planning, the assessor's office, and say, you have a data set you can export, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet. But then also, it's a question of maintaining that because parcel information changes over time. So,
And how many hours a day do you still have available, John?
well, I got
You're elected.
3 more years of college to pay for, and then we'll see. So,
Okay.
But these are the items that they've been looking at in terms of specific projects. We did talk to Raphael a little bit via email. And there's another project I believe that he wants to come and talk to us about. January is too early. February might be too early too. So we're probably looking at March. We would probably dovetail with what the committee would like to do with a more detailed update in March. And the project I think Raphael wants to talk about is the Saratoga Way, the northbound on Eldorado Boulevard, the turn lane still westbound to Saratoga. So I think that they're talking about putting that out for a bid, or they might be preparing things. So I think that's what Raphael wants to come and talk about. So That's a
Hey,
good fit.
John,
Hey, Brooke, go ahead.
can I ask? Hi. So on that Saratoga, I did have some community members approach me specifically with that new um, medical building that's going in. There's no
Yes.
access or turn lanes. And so I was asked a question, and maybe this could be brought up to the transportation committee, but the plans that were approved, they couldn't even find the traffic studies that relate to the plan approval for that building. And then what was very interesting too is the owners of that building were charged additional fees that aren't related, but they're supposedly related to TIF fees at the end of the conclusion of the project. I don't know if people remember, but they ripped up the roads. And they said it had something to do with water pressure. But it was very bizarre because then they also were saying, I got questions about whether or not that was related somehow to traffic and different traffic mitigation fees. And so there's a lot that seems to be going on that Saratoga Road. And I don't know if maybe that's something we can investigate a little bit more or provide some guidance as to where to find maybe some of these studies and what was approved.
Okay.
Hey, Brooke, anything you might have that you can share, I'll make sure that the rest of the Transportation Committee has that, and we'll dig into it.
Yeah, and if, you know, for the room and for people listening online, and we'll listen to the recording later, diligently, I'm sure. Anybody who wants to volunteer to help out, it doesn't mean that you have to work on that committee forever. They'll take part-time help. If there's a specific thing that you want to talk about or curious about, you know, it's a collaborative effort. So anybody who has those ideas. So Brooke, if there's somebody in your community that wants to either submit more questions or help out in the review with the Standing Transportation Committee, please encourage them to reach out.
Yeah. Let me give you an example of how important that is. At the last meeting, for those of you who sat through the marathon, and hopefully I'm going to make this short so this thing doesn't become a marathon meeting also. But we had a very long discussion with regard to certain activities that are happening specifically in the business park pertaining to transportation. And at the end of the meeting, Rafael Martinez came up to us afterwards and said, I had no idea that these things are even going forward. And that he was absolutely shocked, quite frankly, to realize that permits had been granted for grading permits had been granted for the Gateway proposal, given the impacts potentially on Carson Crossing specifically. And so as a result of what we did, at least that's now on the table and being looked at. And it's important that we as citizens bring this thing forward to staff, because a lot of times staff are busy doing their own jobs.
Yeah.
And we need to make them aware. So
And to be fair for Rafael, you know, Rafael leads the agency. He's not knee deep in every project, but he is reviewing the work product of his agency, his department. And the same like with Karen at planning, you know, we had a lot of, and I saw an email today Melinda shared with me. A lot of people have been asking about the parcel split for the golf course that's proposed, and you know the timelines with the with all of it, with the escrow, and you know how many days and how can it happen. And so I don't know the answer, but I got 20-something people emailing, calling.
So you didn't get an answer to include this
I didn't.
county
No, I
surveyors?
saw it.
Okay, I'll
Melinda
forward it
forwarded-
to you because I thought you were on that email stream.
My email I saw was in the middle of it, but I didn't get a response. Karen said she would look into it. And
Okay.
kudos to Karen because I asked her during Christmas week.
Okay.
I know her staff was out. Obviously, it's a holiday for everyone, but
I've shared that with the open space group and they were going to
Yeah.
share it around. I didn't realize you didn't get a
Yeah.
response.
So,
to it.
but
Okay, can you share what summary of that? We have obviously a CSD director here. That might be, and I have discussions with him on.
so let me finish my point on that.
Sure.
Maybe we'll jump into
Okay,
that.
fine.
The thing about that is that, you know, I asked Karen, hey, you know, it's a parcel split. How does that timeline work? Parcel splits take time. And her answer to me was, you know, she's the director of the agency. She goes, she doesn't know what every parcel is in every project. And she said, I assumed it was already multiple parcels. She didn't realize it
Hey,
was one
John,
parcel.
can Can I
Oops.
jump in on that? Because it's a trend that I've been noticing as I'm researching some of these issues. What's happening and what I've seen a lot of the times when Parker or one of its subsidiaries owns a parcel of land, they're doing these partitions with a different way than parceling out. So it's a much larger parcel than they're partitioning off. And they're having covenants when they do these partitions, there's covenants that get recorded that run with the land that govern things from, you know, the original plan, traffic controls, mitigation, all these different aspects of development that date back, you know, decades ago. And that's how they're getting away with some of these things, not being as up to date. So it's very, it should, when people are looking at how they're doing these land deals, it's important to know and distinguish between a partition, a parcel, a realignment, a lot line, like all these things really matter, but then what's going along with it? And there's not a lot of documentation. It's really hard to find this information. I find it's buried. But if there's a land lease involved, which seems to be how the commercial properties are being developed, if it was owned by Parker at one point in time or one of their subsidiaries, there's all these covenants that are recorded against those properties that are really specific and guiding the nature of the development of that land. So it's something I hope that we can get some more clarity on.
Okay, that's fair. I'm talking to one lawyer online. I'm sitting next to another lawyer, retired. But I definitely think, you know, you guys as officers are probably the first people we'd run that past, and then we'd follow through, obviously with county to see if there's more detail, but how we can learn about it and how we can share that information with the community. Oh, Linda, go ahead.
So thinking of Saratoga, the Central El Dorado Hills specific plan, if that Country Club Drive extension comes through, then the impacts on Saratoga definitely have to be reassessed if in fact something like that happens.
And I believe that when we looked at other projects like the Saratoga Retail Phase 2, those were considerations considering the CIP at the time. Those are 20-year projects. So like the cost will not be what the cost is in the CIP in 20 years. The impacts are different. We know that with Saratoga, when it was open, the expectation was, you know, for a certain volume of traffic from the transportation department. I know that Supervisor Heidel, former planning commissioner, they're going, that can't be right. I mean, it's going to be a bigger number than you think. And I think instead of the 8,000 the first year, I think we're at 14,000 within a few months.
Right. Well, and two, I
So-
guess with the obviously in the plans and the diagrams, it's just a little picture in there. With the sale of the golf course, I don't know if that excludes it at all, but definitely just
Yeah.
saying because Saratoga came up and
Yeah.
got to
So,
keep that in mind.
yeah, we looked at with the traffic models, you know, the near term without project, near term with project in the future, which at the time I think was 2035, if I'm remembering.
25,
Yeah,
26.
yeah, well, it's longer. So yeah, that was our concern. It's like, well, are these numbers, do they match up with, are you considering with this project and the project before it? They said it was a different number. The two projects, since it's I think Saratoga Retail was actually less. So yeah, do all these things line up? So, and I think it's fair that as long as we ask, right? We might not have the answers ourselves, but I think pursuing it makes sense.
Can I jump in a
John,
minute?
while we're talking about transportation, I did receive a call from Steve Ferry this morning. And he asked me to, since I lived close to Green Valley Road on my backyard, to join another committee that he was involved with that really revolved around transportation and CIP and the Board of Supervisors. So Steve, this would probably be the perfect opportunity for you to raise those issues and do it in an open forum here, because I think a lot of what you might be requesting might be some things that the subcommittee, Transportation Committee, is already working on, and they could expand their looking at forward into these ideas.
I'll try to do this in 3 minutes or less, but I live down in Heritage, which obviously where Bob Williams lives also. We are going to be impacted by the new AKT development if it happens. And when it happens, we have some serious concerns about the major arterials that run around us, such as Latrobe Road and what others. And so one of the things that appears to have happened prior to Supervisor Heidel becoming a member of the Board of Supervisors, with the CIP got dropped in 2015. And that CIP included, and correct me if I'm wrong, because all this has been rumor that I've just packed into one little box. But the CIP was deleted from our plan here in 2015 that included Bass Lake, Green Valley, and Latrobe Road. And with that in mind, Bass Lake right now, just my humble opinion, I drive it at least once a week, and that's a disaster. Thank you for bringing us Milpitas. We couldn't have gotten Milpitas here any quicker. But in any case, that's something that we need to fix. We need to get the CIP back in. And the nice part about this for Supervisor Heidel is it's the end of his term. And so he can do anything he wants to do, really. Get reelected anyway. And it's got to be a great feeling. So I'm hoping that he'll support us in getting a CIP put back together and put in place for Latrobe Road area, southeast, or would be southwest El Dorado Hills, for Bass Lake, and for Green Valley Road.
There was a discussion on that with the Board of Supervisors today, brought up by Joe Harn, and I think DOT understood what the intent was, but there's no action, so.
And I think with the CIP, typically like maybe once a year, depending on projects. And yeah, and you're identified in 2015, 16. I think there were 3 projects on Bass Lake Road, and I think all 3 of them were dropped.
Yeah.
Bass Lake Road was identified, I think, for 1988, the El Dorado Specific Plan potential for a 6-lane road on Bass Lake Road. And then we talked about 4 lanes. Right away exists for 4 lanes for most of it. But right now, the analysis says from transportation and from planning is that, okay, that growth hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. So there's probably not a need for 4 lanes all the way through. So, yeah, so you identified, but I think there's a Bass Lake project got put back in.
Yep.
And,
What I'm trying to point out is it's not just roads, it's schools.
Yeah.
It's all the stuff that goes with it. And, we need to put something together to have people who are running for office. A couple of them are in here right now. They're hearing what I'm saying, I hope. And where they will be able to put, or maybe have the CIP put in place before this present administration leaves. That's what I'd like to see. In any case, thank you very much for the time.
I would, John Rasdad, I'd like to add something. Way back
John.
when Saratoga was being planned, APAC was quite active in working with DOT about Saratoga. And the members of APAC had recommended that Saratoga be a 4-lane road to match the 4-lane road coming out of Folsom. And the developer had said that it wouldn't be a big deal for him to add another, to make it a 4-lane. He said he already owned that land. And DOT at that time felt that it was not necessary to have 4 lanes. And here we are now saying that it is necessary to have 4 lanes. Okay.
yeah, and I remember those discussions.
Yeah,
I also,
But John, the stretch where it isn't 4 lanes, it's too narrow. That's owned by Parker. That's owned by Serrano LLC. It's the remainder parcel that they own. So it wasn't even in the negotiations with Renaissance and the developer. That's kind of like the main issue that they're running into.
I believe they have secured the right of way, have they not? For most of it.
Yeah, and my understanding, that was part of the plan. DOT had approved it, but the board, based upon DOT's recommendation not to put it in now, was accepted. I went up and testified that it should be 4
Yeah.
lanes now and do it
Yeah.
before I got on the board, but it didn't happen, so.
Were you representing APAC at that time, I believe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Something to add on Saratoga while we're back on that. There was a requirement to upgrade the size of water main. That was done at night. DOT required the contractor at greater expense to do it at night to minimize the traffic impacts. But that's what my understanding from DOT is. It was to upgrade a water line that wasn't adequately sized.
Okay. The other thing on Saratoga was that I believe, as Brooke pointed out, the original developer was committed to a 4-lane alignment. DOT had said yes, the right of way was there. Then Elliott bought the
Well,
property,
when,
and then they were shocked at the cost of the 2-lane road. So we have one developer willing to do it and one developer not so excited about it. And then DOT had made that recommendation to the board to hold off.
yeah, well, what the real problem is it's at the area between Finders and Wilson. And
Yeah.
what you have is you have the utility lines that run there. And so PG&E ran its lines and there really isn't the width. So even if the right of way is there, the public utility runs right in the way you'd have to redo the new utility lines that just went in. So it's the width is off there. That there isn't the space. There's space up by Wilson, and there's the space as you go further down. They could get closer to those townhomes around the bend where the Saratoga retail, where the Starbucks went in. But right there at Finders, they got a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the most dangerous intersection right now too, because they don't even have the measurements to be able to put in any kind of sidewalk, and actually the roadway is too narrow for for vehicle code. So it's a real mess, unfortunately.
So you've been waiting.
So I just wanted to clarify a few things, and I'm hoping in your traffic information, you're adding, also looking at the general plan transportation elements and the requirements of that, because I feel like the county's ignored those ever since they voted on in 2016. And
As part of my agenda, I'm not sure it's the full committees yet, but I would love to have you involved in some of those discussions next
I
time
know,
we meet
so-
on that.
So, and it's frustrating because there's a lot, I've been doing this for about 16 years. And there's a lot of historical knowledge that's gone. And when I hear, I feel like we're reinventing the wheel all the time. And those records were all there at one time. And it seems like the county is making it less and less transparent to get to that information, or they're ignoring it. And I look at just conditions of approval. All these projects that were approved still have conditions of approval. Probably about 4 years ago, I was in a meeting with a project that had to do with Diamond Springs, and the map they had didn't comply to the conditions of approval. So I was asking the fire marshal, why aren't you saying something? Because the plan doesn't reflect what you're going to require. And he says, well, it's in the conditions of approval. And so he wasn't worried that we had a faulty map, that's what people look at, their visual.
Mhm.
When that really what was on the map would not be allowed according to the conditions of approval. So there's required mitigations. And then the other thing is with Caltrans, I'm finding they don't care about road safety anymore. They're a whole different department. They're a Department of Housing element. And I'm with a group trying to have a meeting with them, and it's been 8 months. We're going to just storm their office because they won't let us have a meeting with them to explain, do they care about any infrastructure safety issues? Because they don't anymore. I have letters, back in 2014, they were saying, you're already maxed out here, you're already maxed out here. And now they're just gone. They don't everything feels like it's going amok, but those letters and those requirements are still there. I mean, I have copies and folders and all kinds of that information. So I get nervous that everybody's having to start over when these projects are just moving forward without the oversight. And Raphael, I've been in his office so many times and showing him evidence, and he's still debating about it. It's like, here's a survey that was signed by your surveyor in the county, and you're still telling me this is not so. So there's, because county council keeps telling him to don't agree with the signed document from your surveyor. It's just, there are so many bizarre things. And Raphael, if you've been to some meetings, he'll say, this area, the capacity's done. We can't approve any more projects. But that's not getting out to the public or out to the, database. And so that's why I appreciate what you guys do, that you're actually trying to, organize all this information and put it somewhere so that we should have a map that says this area is done. Oh, the last one, Bass Lake. So we talked to Roger Trout when he was the planning director, and I asked him, it was actually me and Lori Parlin said, how are you allowing, this is before Safeway, how are you allowing any of these projects until the road mitigation's dealt with? And he said, whoever, they're allowing all these projects, but they can't move forward until they build the infrastructure. First person that pulls a permit has to build that infrastructure. That's disappeared.
Yeah.
So that's stuff like that. And then, so that you know, the capital improvement plan just says, if this road's on the plan, then they just have to pay a fair share, which is never enough. If it's not on the plan, they have to pay the full amount of whatever that impact is. So, and they can't, so they weren't supposed to move forward unless that got taken care of. So the counties dropped the ball on so many of those things, and nobody's going to be, our turnover is so much. There's, everybody that did all this is gone. So anyway,
Yeah.
this,
Well, I think it's very important. Again, I'm new to El Dorado County. You know, only 6 years now.
Yeah.
So I'm a babe in arms as far as this county is concerned in its history. I do know that your history, John, Lori Palin's history. I mean, you guys have been on the right side, or working on often on the same similar.
we're not on the same side.
Well, I know you're not
We
right
could have a
now.
big discussion though
But no,
about
I'm
things
not
like
saying that right
Dorado.
now. Let me finish.
On us, but anyway.
Well, no, I'm not, I would say that there's a history where you
Yeah.
guys were and somehow were not. And somehow a lot of the stuff that was talked about before is still valid now, maybe more valid, you know, given these brand new proposals. And it's time for us to all take a very deep breath. And again, saying, what do we really want to be as a community?
So you have it, you have the documents stamped and sealed and it's law.
Well, I know there's a
And-
general
and
plan and everything else, but again, it's
It's not a,
at the whim of supervisors, that can all be changed.
three supervisors, yep.
But, and so, but I don't think that's, because, you know, historically, I'm not gonna, you know, villain, may make anybody a villain in this situation. I'm gonna simply say that, we're by and large people of goodwill that have a need to come together on this stuff. Because
mean,
if we
do you-
make a mistake right now,
Follow the law or not, I
Huh?
guess that's, I mean, there's
Yeah.
a law, I look at it more as the rule of law. Either you follow the rule of law or you don't.
well, you don't change it because it's convenient or because of one particular new agenda item.
Or
And that's what
not.
I see
Can I-
happening in my short.
Can
Go
I,
for it.
can I interject just one question? If we do have all these documents, John, I'm just curious, I mean, how much can APAC really archive and store and save this information so that it is available for our, what's that?
Well, yeah, that's been, I think that, when John was elected, back then, members were collectively saving portions of documents. I think, and John Resler will tell you, there was, you know, drop boxes, and we were trying to be collaborative in that nature. When I came in, as a member and then as an officer, I was like, well, how do we share this? And, so that's why basically I did the website just to have a repository, right? And when I first started, I said, well, we'll just link to the county documents, but county documents seem to disappear a lot. So then I
The
just.
links get broken, a lot of
links,
things happen.
A
Yep.
lot, yeah.
Yeah.
And we've changed our tracking systems, I think 3 times in like 5 years when we first started in, I think 2017. So, I just started saving everything. So.
Well,
everything
that,
we can-
I guess that's kind of my question though, like, is that an expense? Because I know we're, a nonprofit volunteer
Yeah. Oh,
organization, and I have
we're
to
not
imagine
nonprofit,
like.
we're
Well,
basically-
sorry,
Yeah.
we're volunteers.
there you go.
Yeah.
And we're
But,
advisory.
and so I have to imagine to start archiving, the volume of documentation that we would want to archive at some point, that becomes a cost or a burden. I mean, I think you're bearing the brunt of it, but is that something that maybe we would put on a future agenda to see if because I think the documentation is so important. And I think the service that we're offering to the community as a start point, I always turn to your records as a starting point for the research, because that's the easiest place to find documentation.
Yep.
And I'd like to keep that going, but is that something that we're kind of reaching a threshold where it's too much, like we have too much volume, or is that something where?
I just sort of I think at the time we were talking about initially in 2017, when John first took office, community council and APAC were still kind of together.
Separate, yeah.
And so John was working on having communications and having identified some people in the community that could do some of these things, talk about a website, and eventually it ended up just being John's supervisor website, where most everything, the staff went through and designed it. I think as best they could, it's what John had envisioned, right? You can't do everything.
It's got a link to APAC.
Well, yeah, I know, and I get emails for John Hyde all the time because my name's on there. Yeah, there's a cost to it, and it's just something I've covered. And APAC has never had funding.
Right.
So we have the good graces of the CSD for many years. We have the good graces of the fire department. I will turn to the president of the fire board in 2024 and say thank you again. Yeah, and so, but as a community, there's always been sort of, everybody's recognized the value of us working collaboratively. And all we're doing is providing advisory comments and findings. So I think that in the last probably 6 years, county staff has engaged with us a bit more than probably they had in the past. And we hope to keep fostering that relationship, right? We might not always agree, but at least if they, we have a dialogue, so there's someplace we can start, and we can throw our hands up at the end, but that's what we can do. But yeah, so going forward, I don't know. My wife's looking at retirement places, so we'll have to figure it. Yeah, I got 3 more years.
There's no limit in the amount of data you can store. It's who enters it and their time.
Well, there is a limit on the data because the web server is.
Okay, on the one you're on, but you can go to the cloud, you can have unlimited data. It just costs you a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a cost, that's all it is.
It's only money, just like roads. It's only money. So yes, and I think I appreciate that people recognize that there's some value in having that, and when we do it, it's very focused on El Dorado Hills. Sometimes we get a little bit of rescue that we'll talk tonight about a project. Sometimes just a little bit of Camera Park where it's adjacent and we'll look at it, but we don't typically provide findings on those. So, but yeah, there's value in having it in one place. I know that if you do a Google search half the time, if it's a project in El Dorado Hills, the APAC website comes up and not the county website. So,
Hey, Brooke, you're correct. John, you said the brunt of it. John Davy basically is spent whatever funds it costs to keep APAC running. I have volunteered, and he has always said no, he'll do it.
Right.
I did lose a little money when the CSD started to charge us for their use of their space, and I advanced 6 months money and fees, and then COVID hit, so we didn't get to use them. There was no refund. So we moved over to the fire department, which volunteered to do it for free. But yes, there is cost involved in keeping certain subscriptions involved and stuff like that. So again, you can ask John. He has not accepted money from me. Whether he will start accepting money from others, I think it's a good idea because I don't think the burden should be on one person to keep this agency running. So John, you and you'll get a check in the mail next week.
well, maybe we'll do an ad hoc committee about that. So no, my concern is that if I'm doing it, I don't want everyone to think it's just John doing it, and that I have like an agenda or a meeting agenda, or that if it's just the officers that we're dictating what we're sharing, or I want it to be pretty transparent. So we have to. I think if we proceed along those lines, we got to find an equitable way to do it and to be transparent about it, so the community understands that we're not trying to steer anything, that we're just trying to provide a benefit. So we could pursue that later. If you want to put it on an agenda in a future month.
Well, I
Or have
hope
a
I didn't
subcommittee.
imply that you're steering anything, because I think it's pretty amazing what you do and keeping those records. So
Well, we have a meeting agenda to return to, so
So do you want an answer on the Central El Dorado Hills question about the parcel and all that stuff?
You know what, as long,
Please.
if you're willing to throw that out there. yeah.
I'll send you the email, but
I saw one of them. yeah.
okay, so the email starts from a gentleman by the name of John Tyler. He's president of Title Operations, Motherlode Holding Company, Plaster Title Company, etc. He says the below email from the El Dorado County Surveyor's Office confirms that the county does not recognize the El Dorado CSD as a government agency exempt from the Subdivision Map Act. So it does recognize them as being exempt from the Subdivision Map Act, which is the state requirement, and can therefore acquire the two portions of existing parcels without a map or certificate of compliance. So this gets into meets and bounds, and it's a total different area that I have any familiarity with, but it's exempt from the Subdivision Map Act. So here's the surveyor's letter that goes into it. It says, I've looked into this project as requested and confirmed that the El Dorado Hills CSD is a public entity and therefore no map is required for this parcel split. A review of the plat and legal description found no technical discrepancy. Let me know if you have any questions. So, and that was from Dan Siders, who's an assistant land surveyor. So that
Yeah,
was the
and-
basis for it.
And I think Melinda and I went back and forth a little email today. I found the thing that they cited in terms of the reason why a government agency transferring to or from is not required. So they're, they have an exemption basically to do that. And so, but it wasn't consistently. An ordinance or a policy, I think is what it said. I saw one that said policy. Oh. Thank you, Linda.
No, John and I have been exchanging emails about this
Okay.
all day, and I sent him your stuff too.
Okay,
So, but what there's a number of sources, which John, of course, can find all this stuff. I can't. But one of these suggests that there needs to be an ordinance in place to allow this kind of transfer to happen. So I don't think this county has an ordinance in place that allows people to, skim by and not do the mapping and the environmental or whatever. So it may be premature to be doing this.
I know the county councils looked at it, so that's all I can say. There's difference of opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but that's.
I don't know either.
we have-
So, and I mean, I have it, it's on the agenda a little bit. The other part of that too is that, when I talked to Karen, I reminded her, I said, it wouldn't be one parcel split, it's 3 parcel splits, because the 11 acres over here north of us, it's already its own parcel. The golf course in totality is 1 parcel. But so when you split it, there's also a 3-acre parcel for Betty January's, which is right behind me, on the other side of the engine bay. So that would be a 3rd parcel. So I don't know how that would work. It's not contiguous to the remainder parcel for Parker Development. So those are all the questions that people have been asking, and that's the one I saw. I said, oh, well, how does that work? So apparently the surveyor's office is pretty convinced that they have a method to go forward. But I think that if, we can submit those questions and ask and have them clarify. And that was my goal when I went to Karen. It's like, I don't want you thinking you have to answer this 28 different times to the 20 people who contacted me. If there's an answer we can share, we'll share it. So that came in through the email today that Melinda shared with me. So I'm sure, I don't want to turn to Jeff and ask, because Jeff obviously is not the board, but he is principal planner at the CSD, and he has some insight, but obviously he can't speak for his board. So I won't put you on the spot much. So, well, we got stuck on that traffic. The Environmental Standing Committee.
We covered it all.
Okay, so
Next month.
really, there's no major updates on this. Melinda, we talked today that, there hasn't been any dialogue since our last meeting.
Right.
The holidays sort of darn them all, the way of how we do that. So moving along, updates. And these are updates. We're not taking any actions. We're not doing official reviews yet because we're not. So everyone's heard. It's a pre-application 23-0015 Community for Health and Independence. It is a pre-application, which means that they would go before the Board of Supervisors and say, this is what we're thinking about, and get feedback from the board based on what they present about whether the board is thinking, well, that sounds interesting, or, and based on the the response they get from the board in terms of questions, they decided they want to go ahead and proceed and file a formal project application. So this is all on our website. So if you want to go look at it, go look at it. So it's proposed, it's 4,000 unit residential mixed use development for El Dorado Hills in El Dorado County, west and south of the El Dorado Hills Business Park, Heritage.
Bob, can you
Four
point out the
Seasons.
county line so people understand it's
Oh,
half
yeah.
and half. It's a total of 2,800 acres.
Yeah.
So the stuff to the right is in Sacramento.
Yeah, I'll show the east plan area and the
Okay,
west plan
all right,
area, but.
all right.
So, but it's a dual jurisdiction project because it does straddle the county line. And the project applicant has asked the city of Folsom, because it's not in the city limits, they want to explore annexation into the city of Folsom, which means that any project that would happen would take longer in Folsom than it would here in terms of process, if they proceed at all due speed. So, so on December 22nd, they dropped the project narrative and documents off in both the city of Folsom, El Dorado County. The project proposes 4,000 residential housing units in Sacramento County, 4,000 in El Dorado Hills. Would have parks, schools, commercial development would occur in both counties. El Dorado Hills would be planned for, on their map, it's one elementary or middle school or combined school, which when you look at the map, it's technically, I believe it's in the Latrobe Union School District. And one of the primary reasons we have a lot of senior housing in that Latrobe area is that Latrobe really is not set to expand their student population, but with enough projects, who knows? It would also feature a 200-acre UC Davis teaching, research, and health complex, and that would be the centerpiece. So it's unique in that AKT Development is working with UC Davis Health, and they're really looking at how people can live in place. You know, this is what they're telling us: live in place and have these resources sort of centered so that it, as you age, and then also this component for people with disabilities, that these resources are here and that the entire development is proposed to be built with that as the focus. So, and again, this is just from a project narrative. There's not a lot of specifics. So they seek annexation of the city of Folsom. And then we also construct a roadway system that would extend from the future Empire Ranch Road extension. It's going to come south of Highway 50, very close to Carson Crossing on the Sacramento County side. And where Empire Ranch will come down, it'll sort of loop back to the west a little bit, but White Rock Road essentially. And they want to provide a connector road, a beltway from White Rock in Sacramento County, south and east to Latrobe Road in El Dorado County, and another connector road. In El Dorado Hills, right now, this is the zoning designation for most of the parcels are, because there are a lot of them. There are a lot of parcels, either the ones they're working on or that are adjacent. You have agricultural grazing, light industrial, rural lands 80 acre, rural lands 40 acres, planned agricultural 40 acre, limited agricultural 40 acre, and residential estate 10 acre. So that's what's existing in place right now. And this, trust me, you could walk up here with a magnifying glass and not see all these parcels, because I can put it on the screen clear like that. On our website, you can look at the colors. There's a legend, I believe, that to help you out. But that's, you know, everything in color is on the El Dorado County side. And then I did an overlay of what they're proposing and laid it over a satellite map, so you can kind of see where it would sit. So jump through here. We'll get to the roadways in a second. So the new connector road from White Rock in Sacramento County, it's identified as Village Parkway and would go north-south. And then in El Dorado County, a connector road would connect from Village Parkway, and it's identified on the map as the Latrobe connector. It would cross over from Sacramento County into El Dorado County, west to east, provide a connection to Latrobe south of the El Dorado Hills Business Park and the Heritage and Blackstone villages. And another connector road is a little bit further to the south that would extend from the Village Parkway east into the county. It's only identified as rural parkway. And that's sort of what we're looking at here. So the green on the letter D, and I don't know if anybody in the room can see it because it is small. The green in the letter D is what the Latrobe connector would be from the blue line, which is sort of the county line, and that's where the Village Parkway would run along. And at the bottom of the map, there's a light green that's identified as rural parkway. That would run, it looks like it would run pretty much close to Latrobe Road, not all the way. And that's what just, you know, the concept right now. There are two plan areas. The Sacramento County side is referred to as the west plan area in the project narrative, and El Dorado County is referred to as the east plan area. And so you can see that black line at an angle, but it designates, El Dorado County and Sacramento County. We went through, we were looking at this, and I've already forgotten my math. So, they're describing it, it seems, pretty innovative at what they're describing and what their stated goal is. Thing that we'll look at as they make an official proposal is, what the breakout really is for residential, for a senior community, what the breakout is for maybe some sort of housing options for disabled people. And I know that with the senior community, it's very easy to deed restrict it to an age, because an age is a thing. There are a lot of definitions of disabilities, and they move, they change. It's not, I worked at Pride Industries for quite a while in the 90s. I recognize that there's a massive need for housing for people to have independent living that are disabled, whether they're developmentally disabled, have mobility problems, runs a gamut. A lot of people are concerned, what is my child going to do if they have this disability? How are they going to live? How are they going to live past me if I'm providing, housing and they're taking care of their needs? So there's a potential right here for something that's unique. But when we count this out, we're looking at it looks like on the surface, there's significantly more just market rate single family housing units versus, but that might be what they say is they need to balance to pay for the senior communities, the disabled. So this is what they propose. If you want to go into the details, we're not going to do it tonight because we'll wait until they do their J6 presentation and get into the weeds. But these documents are on the APAC website for the project. So with that, I know Steve left. Steve expressed his concern. He's a resident in Heritage about what that looks like for transportation, services in the community, and what the impacts could be. There's undoubtedly environmental impacts as well. So,
Well, I guess one of my big concerns, again, as a senior who lives in a age-restricted community, truth of advertising is really important, really sensitive to those of us who bought in to the concept of senior paradise. I look at those numbers just in terms of age restricted, 830 units out of the 4,300 some. Again, we don't know how many is going to be in addition to that would be disabled. It could turn out to be a wonderful paradise, but we really need to, be very truthful in our depiction of what we're really looking at here. I know that if I just look at the age restricted issues, I mean, Heritage, current Heritage, not the future Heritage, we have over 1,000 units. You add that to the additional Heritage unit, the new one, and Four Seasons, and that represents 3 times, or over 2 times rather, the number of units for seniors. I don't see any special accommodation being given to the existing senior community in terms of additional amenities. Not to, well, an example, the Carson Creek Pacific Plan calls for the building of 37.5 acres of parks. At this point, there's only been 4 acres that have been developed. It's not the CSD's problem. It's the enforcement of the conditions of development that have not been fulfilled by the developer on this particular case. As we move forward, I want to make sure that what's promised is fulfilled. And we need to understand that they say parkland is just not a vacant piece of land that someday might happen or may not happen. When we're talking about roads, we need to understand what those roads are, water rights, and all these kind of things. But if we're talking about something that looks good, and and the promotional videos look wonderful, and they're not anything different, then let's not fool ourselves. we have another organization that consistently comes to our meetings and really have been reaching out to us to express their interests and concerns about, and wanting to know the community's interest. And this is Wind Properties on the creek side. I don't see AKT here at any of our meetings. I also look at that particular situation, looking at the top of the proposal, and it basically on the Sacramento side, you see it at White Rocks, ending right at the county line. But if you go on down White Rocks further, all the way up to the Costco proposal, which is also an AKT proposal, the county is going to have to step forward and have to address how you're going to pay for that expansion of White Rock. Because it's just not going to sit there. The pressure is going to expand. The populace will say, what the hell have you done to us? We want our Costco and we want, we're at Folsom, we want to make sure that our roads are not connected. And we'll have the same kind of pressures on Latrobe, because we're going to have to end up completing that, what appears to be a dead end. Where it doesn't really connect to Latrobe yet. There's just this term of a connector. And that, as far as I can tell, is going to be right below the Creekside development. That'll also impact that development. Bottom line is, I think before we get all euphoric about this, we really understand what all the impacts are. And we, again, as a community, need to ask ourselves what the impact is. If it is in any stretch of imagination what they claim it to be, then we should stand and say, yeah, that's what we want as a community. But if that's what we want as a community, let's be open about it and let's really understand what the impact is. Let's understand also as a relationship to Costco, with Town and Country, with the Bass Lake developments. They're all tied one into another. So let's all put it all in one big basket. Let's understand what the concepts are and go forward to the people of El Dorado County, actually for the entire county, and say, this is going to be the cost. And let's take it out to the people. But we, it's, I've said this before, I saw this happen when I was growing up in Southern California. I left Southern California to move to Colorado. I left Colorado because Colorado in the Boulder area had become like Southern California. So I came here, and I don't know how many more years, months, decades I have left, but I'll be damned if I want to see that happen again without at least having the questions asked properly. And I hope that APAC and the people listening to APAC will help join us in adequately answering these questions. I know that's your goal too, John. You're gonna be there for 1 year. You have 30 years worth of a dedication to this community. Legacy that you want to leave, I presume, would be believing that you did your little best for this community. Sue, you made the same kind of commitment also on your part. Other people have too. Somehow let's really not get into political battles. Let's see how we can really work on through this thing. Let's work with developers who are willing to come by and then commit and help out. Yeah. Okay. Enough lecture.
We need to make one quick try. In the past, we've talked with DOT about this road to the west.
Yeah.
Trying to find a solution. Well, it turns out this is the emulation of that solution.
Mhm.
This becomes the road to the west, if you will. On DOT had different alignments and other things. So it's still under discussion. Nothing is cast in stone.
No.
But I look forward to the J6 review to hear more information and to have the public ask the questions. If you want AKT to come to one of your meetings, I think they would accept. Have you asked them?
We didn't this month.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, so I think it'd probably be, and we will reach out to them, although they haven't answered us about Costco, so.
Well, two different projects,
I
two
know,
different
that's,
project leads. Be careful,
yeah,
right?
but they're interconnected.
They're interconnected, but I'm saying
Absolutely.
So-
people
White Rock
dealing
Road
with
is,
it are different. That's
yeah.
all.
So, and to be fair too, this is, a project narrative. What they submit as an actual project could be consistent, It's just be
Substantially different, yes.
Yeah, based on what response they get. And, you know, my only concern too is that this is complicated in the fact that we're talking about two land use authorities, right? County, City of Folsom, Dorado County. You know, if we're first, what happens if our project gets approved in some fashion and it doesn't happen on the Folsom side?
Well, it never happened. Yeah. Yeah.
Please.
So I don't think, there's not conflicting politics, it's just difference of direction.
I understand that, Sue.
So.
I didn't mean to
you know,
characterize it that way.
I don't like to negotiate with those that have nothing when we have everything. So we have a general plan that designated that area as agriculture. And that's to balance our entire plan. And where we conceded to allow that development with the promises of these other things being the way they are. And to keep conceding is not what the county should be doing. So I was just going to say that this project is nothing more than to enrich Angelo and his company, and it should only be looked at this way. You know, the bells and whistles don't mean anything. To keep believing in empty promises and think you'll get a different outcome is dreaming. And we are the ones, this is our county. He doesn't even live here. And we're talking about negotiating on something that he has no, I mean, to me, it's a pie in the sky. You have no, so my comment on the project, I think the county should shoot a arrow across the bow and say, this does not comply to our general plan I mean, I don't see it complying to anything that we even believe in anything in this county. And we'd actually like to see 100-foot buffer on that county line into Sacramento County before Angelo takes over the county. And then, and that we can, you know, that buffer should be against our ag land, which is, we saw all of this is rural ag land. And then my other question is, how do they perceive dealing with the water? Because they cut Folsom 20% on their water to help facilitate the project they're building. And then they had to use some of our EID water to start their project. Where do they think they're getting the water for these 8,000 houses? And how much are we supposed to continue to concede? That's when it steps into, if the county negotiates with this project, the ratepayers on the water are going to have to increase the cost to pay for that. So it's a huge impact on the people that live here and no impact for the one that's doing it to us. So I don't even like the thought of negotiating through all this and wasting everybody's time when we have so many wonderful things that we could be doing in our county to, you know, make it a fun, wonderful place. Instead, we're dealing with these kind of projects all the time. And I actually appreciate APAC more than anybody because you guys do, you know, having dealt with CEQA and all that kind of stuff, that the data that you guys put together actually really helps in having these discussions.
So that's, again, we're advisory. So we discuss it, we present findings, we ask questions, and I think that's where we're at with it. Are there any other questions in the room? Again, I put this on just so we could get it in front of people because people were asking about it. It's not a project yet. It's just a pre-app and a project narrative. So, and I don't see any hands up online. Okay. And let's see how fast did they go too far? Oh, there we go. So Central, we already sort of talked about. We know what the project is. There's a third partially recirculated draft EIR. I know that Melinda was interested in it, and our environmental standing committee wanted to take a crack at it. We have to have comments in by January 26th. So I don't know how detailed they'd be. That might just be pretty general. I've looked at this a couple of times, and then having looked at this for the last 8 years, my eyes spin whenever I go back into it. And so when I'm looking at what's different between this third and the second recirculated, it's just primarily the greenhouse gas standard has moved. They've moved the needle a bit from the state. So I don't know that we're going to have a lot of very specific, because all we can comment on is what's proposed in the third to address the greenhouse gases. So we've made those comments in the past, and whatever we develop, we'll do that. If anyone would like to help our committee.
I think it's fair on behalf of the committee that we've also looked at this. We shake our heads and say, given the narrow scope of this review, again, only
Yeah.
primarily the greenhouse gas. None of us are really great greenhouse gas experts, quite
Yeah.
frankly. That it's, again, a situation where we have to conclude that as long as the golf course proposal is still live and well, and apparently it still is, and will become probably more so next Thursday,
Yeah.
this coming Thursday.
this
This
one,
whole
yeah.
discussion will become moot anyway. So,
Well,
why
yeah.
spin a lot of our wheels?
Yes, but if this does move forward, then we will, at base level, we probably just resubmit our environmental concerns based off the greenhouse gases that we had already provided and maybe isolated as a separate set of comments.
Well, John, would it then behoove us to make a statement that we, if in point of fact it goes forward and, or the purchase does not go forward, we
Yeah.
would ask them to delay a decision and extend the DEIR,
On this
Third time
one,
period.
you know, we didn't ask for an extension on this. We have asked in the past for other ones. And this was actually kind of it was longer than I thought it would be because, what did they end up doing? November 27th or January 26th. So 60 days is longer than they normally do. So I think 60 days is the limit for an extension.
Is it? Right.
So, I think, we can cover our bases by, if we don't see anything that's different, so, well, these are the findings we had before. We want to make sure you understand that we're addressing it and, you know, we're just, you know, we're staying consistent with what our findings were initially. Well, not initially, but after many years. Sue's hands up.
Sorry. I ask this question every time I will ask, and this is just so, it's not at you, it's kind of for you just to think about. And whoever listens, this project, Planning Commission decertified the EIR. So I still have a question of how they're moving forward with an EIR when it wasn't appealed after it was decertified. So,
question.
and I actually talked to an attorney and that was his point. And I just, again, the knowledge of the county and, you know, when I say I've been fighting this for 16 years, that means I've been involved in the game. I've lived here for almost 50 years, you know, so I know how our county works, but I've never seen such dismissal of so I've experienced people that did follow the planning process, which was, and that's why this seems so bizarre to me because I've never seen it done like this before, where they continue after a EIR has been decertified. So the answers that I'm getting, I don't feel comfortable about. And maybe if you guys have already submitted comments, or are you going to?
No, we submitted comments to the planning commission when they were going for planning commission. And I think the distinction is that the planning commission, they didn't decertify the EAR. They voted 4 to 5 to recommend not to.
Correct.
Yeah. So the super, yeah.
Not to certify. So to say not to certify it is
It was
not.
an advisory vote to the board. We recommend that you don't, but the board can say, and you know full well that the board can say, yeah, okay.
I don't believe that because that's not the process that I was, since before the county council we have now, they didn't handle it that way. So that's why I get confused and frustrated. And I've been, you know, or I don't know the word it was, but misinformed by county council so many times that I don't trust, I've lost trust. So it would be nice to see another opinion on that, because to say that they didn't decertify it, they just said they don't.
They provided,
didn't
their
certify it.
advisory recommendation to the board was not to accept the
Yeah. It's not a recommendation on the first. Exactly, and that's your problem.
Oh,
So I would.
so that's it. And, I mean, and so the planning commission at the time, they're pretty consistent with what our findings were, not completely, but, you know, we had problems with the general plan, consistency, we had problems with the environmental review, and, you know, they voted that way. Their recommendation was, the board was to deny based on those things, and then they had to make specific advisory recommendations for those specific items, and that's how they voted. 5-0
So
for,
can you just resubmit your previous comments? Because I find them very tricky also, because sometimes they'll say, well, you know, up front, just address this one thing, but then if you want to challenge it later, they'll say, well, you didn't bring up any of those items.
what we could do is we can submit both. We can do a focus
That's
one
what I
and
would
say,
do.
and then here's the one we submitted in June of 2022.
Yes. Yeah.
Time
Not long
flies.
ago.
So we're having fun. So, so
I think technically you did yours in April, but the planning commission
Commission,
reviewed
yeah.
it.
it's all a blur. So, and that was a lot of pages.
It started in 2012, so it should be blurred, right? It's gonna
yes.
have to be.
I think that was my public comment, that this has taken over a decade. So sort of hand in glove with this is we discussed earlier, the CSD's intent to purchase the 55 acres. They did release the information about, they did approve a cash financing plan for the purchase, $1 million. They had a bit of a conflict with the language that was in the feasibility period. It was 45 days from the effective date of the purchase and sale agreement, and that would end on January 11th, 2 days from now. And the escrow was set for January 3rd, so they agreed to extend it to January 12th. So that's how it's realigned now. And so they had posted that on the website. So there's nothing really new to report on this. It's just that, you know, the CSD has said that, you know, we're going to do cash. They didn't want to finance it. And I can understand that to a degree is that, you know, when interest rates are 3%, you're working with, you know, you're using somebody else's money. And when they're 9%, it's mostly your money. So that's how they elected to proceed. And the thing that we keep reminding people about is that the condition of the sale is that the remainder 43 acres south of the golf course clubhouse will be remain and retain the recreational facilities high intense use zoning. That's part of the agreement that they get. Any development would happen on the 43 acres if the CSD is not able to purchase that within 18 months and the funding, that it still would have to, the development would have to be consistent with that zoning. So that was one point that the CSD won in that negotiation. And then also we talked about the 3 acres here for Betty January's conceptual project for the Center on Aging.
Center for the Ages. Ages, yeah.
Well, I'm getting there. So so that's really all there is on that in terms of an update about that. So that's just sort of an update with.
But there is, you know, in case you haven't been to enough meetings this week, Thursday night, the CSD has their regularly scheduled meeting.
Yep.
And it'd probably be appropriate to go there because you might get better updates on where they are with the escrow and what's going on from their board of directors.
Right.
Yeah, and they come back at 6:30 from their closed session.
Yeah.
And you can go there and say, Jeff said at APAC, don't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Jeff's here at all these meetings and that's valuable. So thank you, John.
The other thing.
Hey,
to be noted
John.
is that-
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
right.
Go ahead, Brooke.
Just, can you make it clear? Because maybe I lost it. So the purpose of APAC's comments with regard to this plan would be just to address changes that were made to the what is it?
RDEIR,
Yeah, the
Okay.
third recirculated
right,
draft. environmental
greenhouse
draft.
gases.
Yeah.
But I thought the issue that we previously submitted comments on wasn't that. I thought it was as the project as a whole.
It was.
That's correct.
Okay,
So
so
because the project is still in process, and the standard has changed with CEQA, they were required to issue a third recirculated to address the changes in CEQA for greenhouse gases.
right, so I understand that, and I guess what I'm trying to get at is what comments APAC would submit. So is the issue then for the board that we'd be submitting comments for whether or not to accept this third iteration?
I
What
think that, yeah, you know, it's a comment period and we want to make sure that we don't let it go by without, if there's something we're missing, you know, we have volunteers still looking at it, right? So if they might find something.
But I guess what I'm just asking is what is the specific action on the agenda or what we're commenting on? What is specifically what we're asking APAC to opine on or provide our
Well, we would
analysis
probably-
on?
Well, we won't be able to bring it back for a vote among members before this the close of the comment period. So what we'll end up doing is having the subcommittee submit their comment that, hey, you know, we've reviewed this in the past, and with the greenhouse gas changes to CEQA that we're still concerned about, you know, X, Y, Z in terms of the environmental review for the draft EIR. And it's
So
confusing
not,
to me.
yeah, because so there's been some other changes and some other bills that have been passed, but the most notable is you can't fast track through SEQA for projects where they have residential housing less than 500 yards away from a highway. That's actually an impasse, and you have to do a full analysis. And I know that that was something that Parker kept pushing forward and saying, no, no, no. And there's also funding out there for these type of high density dwellings. And actually the changes in what got signed is the opposite of that. But that being said, is like, are we opening up an additional critique on what's been submitted and based on the changes that have been passed in the last year that would affect this development? Or are we just going to limit it strictly to the greenhouse gas
Well,
issue?
the comment period on this is specifically in the document limited to the greenhouse gas change in CEQA. And then all
Okay.
other elements of the draft environmental impact report remain as they are submitted. What confuses me is that they submitted a final and we're commenting on a draft again. So back and forth yo-yo. But yeah, I think looking at, you know, my initial look at it, looking at like 2 or 3 times, I don't see anything significantly different. We'd probably say, well, these are the comments we made in regards to greenhouse gases in 2022, and they remain our concerns today, even with this change to CEQA. And then we could also add in, you know, and by the way, here's our 72-page document that you might want to look at besides that.
Okay. Yeah. So just having gone through it, I think I would just resubmit all of our comments again because it's so
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah, I don't want to make a lot of work for volunteers, but then again, we want to be thoughtful about how we do it. So,
Yeah.
so
Thank you for that.
Okay.
I did want to make one thing clear. If the CSD purchased the property and they decide to develop it for sports fields, a golf course, whatever, they will have to do a brand new EIR.
Yeah.
They can't link it to the county ER or anything else. It'll have to be, as is Bass Lake Park, they will have to basically do a brand new EIR. So all of those issues will come up again, and it'll be refreshed from the standpoint of what is current law, what is the view today as opposed to maybe what it was years ago. So I think that's the other aspect of this. It gets us back to a clean start,
Yeah.
which is favorable in every case. But
I know, and then like Melinda pointed out when we did a review a year and a half ago or whenever it was, is that there's some items in there that, you know, about seeps and water and many other items that we were concerned about.
right.
We have 15 days to get that all together. So,
But also, if the sale goes through, it's my understanding that Parker Development will withdraw its application. And if they decide to develop Pedregal or other areas, they're going to have to start out with a complete new application, complete new CEQA requirements, complete new updates on surveys, cultural, biological, everything else. So it'll start out tabula rasa, brand new, fresh start. So,
and yeah, that's my last comment on this slide is that a new project may be proposed for Pedregal
Yeah.
They would have, but I do want to say that they probably would base some of their findings on analysis that they've done previously and then put it into it. And then at that point, we'd probably be saying, hey, that is 17 years old. And point it out.
And that's fair. That's
So-
absolutely fair.
Oh,
So just for clarification, because I don't have the answer, maybe you do, John, maybe others do. What specific action must occur in order to say the CSD deal has been consummated?
Close of escrow.
A close of escrow is the.
For the initial part, for the 66 acres,
Yeah.
right? Not the remainder.
Okay,
59 plus 11, yes.
all right. So that has to be done again on what day? The 12th,
Um,
14th?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm getting confirmation from the room without a verbal.
Mhm.
So we'll do what we have to do, right? And hopefully Jeff will solve a problem for us. Or a challenge. So, and again, this is the layout of the purchase proposal. The brown area to the south would remain property of Parker with an 18-month option for the CSD to find additional funding. The green is everything that would be purchased by the CSD. The little box right behind us at Station 85 is 3 acres for the Center for the
For
Aged.
the
Center
ages.
for the ages.
D.
No, it's not a D, it's an
Ages.
S.
Yes,
Center
plural.
for the
Yes.
ages,
So,
multiple ages.
and we're all part of it. So-
Over 65, but yes.
Well, no, all
It's not a
ages.
senior center.
Yeah, and then, of course, the 11-acre bonus site that's going to be donated, that's on the north side of the building there. So just to show that, this is a weird one I just threw in. I don't say weird. I saw this project back in November. It's the old Bass Lake golf course, right down the street from a house where I played many rounds. They're proposing a general plan amendment and a plan development seeking 43 residential units plus agricultural uses on the old golf course property. They seek a zone change from the limited 10-acre. So seek a zone change on that, and then there's also they want to change it to RE5 plan development, RL10 plan development, and open space plan development. There's a general plan amendment for the rural region to low density residential, which is not so inconsistent with what's there now. It had been 10-acre, a lot of 10-acre residential estate, I believe. And the golf course was a conditional use permit on that property. So land development project, 43 dwelling units. Here's a thing, and I have a comment from somebody who emailed it in through plan development density bonus and other parcels, the open space and with some accessory agricultural uses. I have a comment from a resident this is in Rescue technically, although it's across the street from Dorado Hills on one side and Cameron Park on the other.
District 4, correct?
Yeah, it's District 4.
95762.
A jet. Yeah, but yeah, these things change. So this is from Matt Guggen, and Matt, I've talked to Matt for many years, and he lives in Rescue. He's right behind where the Oak Haven / Summerbrook development's at. He's very concerned about the density bonus. The county needs to close the misuse loophole on density bonus. It's a prime example of how it's being used against how and why it was created. It was designed so that developers added public use trails and parks to the project. They do not just leave half a block free and make it a playground because they're nice guys. County said if you create public use open space that can shrink the land use zoning, they can shrink it and build more housing. So win-win situation, community gets park and trails, developers make more money. And he says that it was density bonus was misused in Summerbrook, Oak Haven now. And that he sees the density bonus being applied to this project as well. So he's wants the staffers and supervisors to recognize the misuse of this and say no and take another look at it. Again, it's a pre-application, and it's from November, and there's been no progress that I've not documented that we have access to. Oh, you know what? I was pretty sleepy when I did this. It's on our website though. It's 50, yeah. I would
About
say.
50 acres.
So they have 3 planned access points. The existing access is Alexandrite Drive, which is technically Bass Lake Road that crosses Green Valley to the north. A new access off of Starbuck where it wraps around the back. and a second new access off of, Dorado Drive. I never say that right.
Erdo.
Dorado. Okay. That's the Emerald Meadows neighborhood. I know that the developer of the golf course used to work with my dad. He had talked about building houses on the golf course, in the 90s. And that access point for Emerald Meadows was part of what he had considered for his project. So it's not new, but it will be new because it hasn't happened in almost 30 years. So that project, it's in rescue. I don't know if we will comment on it or if we won't.
The only reason we typically look at some of the things in rescue is traffic. Because obviously, if it's built, they're going to be accessing El Dorado Hills through Green Valley Road. What type of traffic density, what type of traffic uses will be
43
involved?
units, it's not super
It's
big.
probably 8 to 10 units, 8 to 10 trips per household per day based on the county normal, what the transportation looks at. So how will that affect? But again, it's not just that project. If what's Dixon Ranch now called? If Generations comes back, that's 500 homes or give or take. So
There's
how's,
There's
how will that
also
affect?
another pre-application from last year for where that pond is behind Pleasant Grove House. So there's that one. Summerbrook obviously is being developed. So yes, there's an opportunity for a lot. And of course, Silver Springs to the south is, I think they only have a year left on their tentative map. They did a 2-year extension. That was their last one.
Yes.
And it was technically over the line, or close to. So there are a lot of projects. They're not massive projects, but they are projects. So if this proceeds and they do their pre-app and we look at it, if there's something that it's important to do, we'll ask for volunteers. And then that's the satellite map of it. Alexandrite is the red marker there. You can see Bass Lake Road to the south. The elementary school or the middle school is to the west. It's kind of off this map, but you can see generally where it's at. So, and that's just one of the and they took a photo of the map that was submitted, and that's the attachment. So that's a little more detailed about the. So what they do for land for the density bonus is that they get everything in tight in terms of the developed properties and have more open space. That's
That's the key. They have to dedicate more open space.
It's
But if the open
everything-
space isn't usable, it's not great to the community,
Well,
right?
it's all in yellow here is open space. So, but it's unique that right now it's like a farm right now on the old golf course. They're doing things like that. Oh, you get the hoot nanny there?
said that it's always been zoned
RE
RL10.
10 or RL.
They operated the course under a permit.
Conditional use permit, yeah. So and the conditional use permit they sold it to the second owner. And they still have the conditional use permit, so I believe they have a conditional use permit for the farming activity that they do there, or they.
Don't remember that.
I have to, you know what, I drove past it, I'm sad that I don't get to play golf there anymore, but I walk past my golf clubs all the time, there's not a lot of playing golf. So, but yeah, so, and that's unique, we'll see what they if they proceed, they might not even follow through on this, so. And then the very last item, and we talked about Bass Lake Regional Park, the district issued a notice of preparation for their draft EIR. There's a public scoping meeting at the CSD at the Pavilion on Tuesday, the 23rd at 6 p.m. I encourage everybody to go down and look, right? Because there's a lot of elements, like I'll show, I'll get to a slide that shows the park. They've worked on this for a long time, the district, with the input from the community around the lake, El Dorado Hills. Residents have provided feedback about things they'd like to see there. I think when we did the master plan update, I was in that committee for a year at the CSD, that I think a lot of people recognize it can't be everything, right? I know that right now there's concern about the funding because that park's gotten very expensive in terms of what a build out of every element would be. It might just be that best course with this draft EIR is to get it approved for the maximum that they can do, and then once approved or whatever, however it's approved, is that you build what you can fund over time. So I know staff has put a lot of effort into this and try and get feedback from their board and from the community. You know, and like I said, I've lived there, it'll be 29 years in July, so a long time coming. So the initial review period started on January 3rd when they issued this. It ends on February 1st, so that's typical 30-day sort of review period. So, and again, this is location time, 6 p.m. on Tuesday the 23rd at the pavilion. The scoping meeting, I'm trying to remind people, scoping meetings are about environmental, not about whether you like every aspect of what's being proposed. So I don't like a tower in that building. I don't like, it's the environmental. If there's an environmental reason you don't like the tower, sorry. But basically anything that you say at the scoping meeting, or if you write a comment card, anything you provide to them in their analysis will be included in the draft EIR and be answered in the final. So it's primarily potentially significant environmental impacts. So and then there's a lot of detail here. You can read about it on the district's website. Yeah, it's a big project in terms of for the community. I don't think it was a big deal when we did the community park here in El Dorado Hills a long time ago, but it's another big project. So if you can attend that meeting, provide your comments, and continue to keep your eye on it. And again, this is the site, the Bass Lake, obviously, at the Bass Lake Road. Hey, there's my house. And then this is sort of a close up. Now, yeah, obviously I couldn't get the legend in on the screen here. There's a lot of detail to try to break it up, but primarily the very sort of programmed activities and development would happen on the west side of the lake, which contains a lot of the Serrano Village J Lot H. That was a parkland dedication requirement, a lot of parking spaces. And then that's subordinate the aspects of the elements of what's proposed. And again, I believe that the district is looking at trying to get as much approved as they can, and then coming back and funding as best they can, and over time, getting it in. And the east side of the lake and the north side is considered to be more undeveloped. A lot of like a learning resource center and things like that for students in the area or from outside the area to come and do for that biological aspect of education and looking at the lake ecosystems. And and I know a couple kids, Girl Scouts that have done, my kid did a project on this, and others have done it. A lot of people are looking at, and my neighbor is on the Rolling Gale, has done a lot of work at trying to study this and provide that biological aspect. Not my opinion. This is a preserving a rural element in a sea of suburban development. So challenges, we have a very rural road in our middle of our suburban development. So that is the value, is preserving as much as this as you can, and then having the park elements there that will benefit the community. So
I would say that the scoping meetings is the first official time the public can get in there. They can talk to the CSD directors, the CSD staff, the county planning staff, and make their concerns known. They can ask questions, which the staff, either county or a CSD may not know, but they will be answered if they write them down and they submit them in a card. So it's the first step, one of many, because it's going to go through so many environmental reviews, budget reviews, final preparations, final documents. It'll be a 2 or 3 year process, as we all know, but this is the first time. So I look around and saying, I see the people that have been here multiple times over the years. So you're not the people that need to be at this scoping meeting. You know how it works. You need to get your friends and your neighbors, if they have any issues or concerns or questions about what this project is about, they're the ones that should be going to this meeting. So please get the word out. And I know Supervisor Heido, it's probably on your question list. I mean, your calendar schedule list. So people can look for you. It'll be on the APAC list. John, get it out to the Heritage and the Four Seasons groups, so that if people from those areas have concerns, now's the time to raise them, because the sooner you raise them, the better the answers you're likely to get.
Note that DOT has been working with the CSD to try to make sure there's a pedestrian pathway that parallels Bass Lake Road to avoid the safety issues that we have out there. We've decided the best place to put it is inside the CSD boundaries, inside the park boundaries. So I'm hoping that is part of this scoping plan. I hope that didn't get lost because that was discussed 2 years ago or whatever, but sometimes
Yeah.
things do get lost. But that's important to be able to make sure that we have a safe area that the kids, bicycles, whatever, can move parallel to the roadway and don't have to be on Bass Lake.
Yeah, a lot of people use the footpath that is on the overflow on the
Yep.
south side. It's a
Yep.
dirt path, very narrow. Kids walking it all the time. And that was a challenge we have with the J7 and J6 project at Toronto because no frontage improvements. They just put money in an account that will not pay for anything in 20 years.
And I'll put in a word for John Rassler. Make sure you put in a class 1 bike path.
So, and then I will say that the Transportation Commission put that in their active transportation plan 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Is that they show a mixed use class A is what they call it.
Class A.
Is
Class A.
walking and bike, which I'm sure Raz will be thrilled about it. The
Proper
shared.
signage, yeah.
Yeah, so, but they show it on the park property, but they also show a bike path on the east side of Bass Lake Road. They also show a bike path on Bass Lake Road to Green Valley from Silver Springs. Good luck. So, but no, it is a concern right now. I work at home. I drive to this meeting. I drive to other meetings. But on Bass Lake Road, I was shocked. I came back from getting the key for the fire station yesterday at 4 o'clock. And I stopped, traffic stop on Bass Lake Road by Greg's house. And then it was stopped all the way up to the supermarket and even past the supermarket. So things are changing there. So hopefully the analysis shows, where the mitigation could happen with the park and then future projects that are coming. So it'd be great to see Bass Lake Road become a safer road like all our roads.
I'm actually glad you brought up the bike lane because that came up with the Town and Country review. And so going back to the Transportation Committee and it's putting all of these things together, because now if we put the park, do we have to have a road widened before we put the park in? Or is Town and Country going to come along and then have problems with widening a road because of increased traffic levels? Because now the CSD stuff's there.
I think the distinction with Town and Country is that it's part of the Bass Lake Hill specific plan. And as Sue mentioned, Roger had said many years ago, Bass Lake Hill specific plan, they front loaded, George Shirk and I, they front loaded a lot of the improvements for Bass Lake. And then subsequent developers have to provide whoever next, right? I know that there's a trigger where they have to do the analysis of the interchange improvements, but they don't have to do it. The next project will. So there's a potential there for them to be required to do something to mitigate. And talking with the Mohana family and the developers there, is that they're looking for, they're very big advocates, obviously, for the bike trails on their property and across the old wagon trail. And they see the connectivity to the trails from Serrano to the north and the west as a benefit for their project. So we just have to keep saying it. And I think for the transportation subcommittee, the standing subcommittee, if we look at what the El Dorado County Transportation Committee, which is not a government, El Dorado County government agency, but if we look at what they propose and see how we could recommend things be integrated or adopted into projects and just
That
remind
makes sense.
people
Yeah.
these things are here. It's a matter of funding.
And on Bass Lake Road, I think they're trying to internalize all the trails, so it's on their property, it's not out on the
Yeah.
road front, till it comes down to where
Although there
the
is
old country club is cut off, and then it's gonna end up back
well,
out.
the old country club was supposed to be the bike trail, but
Right.
apparently not now. So,
Right.
but there's supposed to be a class 1 bike trail on the east side of Bass Lake Road from the Bass Lake North, the Toll Brothers project. Hidden Ridge, I can remember the name. But basically, from where the sidewalk ends, there's a sidewalk there now. There is a bike trail. It's supposed to be a class 1. And that's like 2 years ago, it was $1 million trail. It'll probably be $2 million in 2 years. But that is a COA of that development, the Bass Lake North, that they have to, for those 90 homes, they have to build that trail. So class 1. So I just encourage people to look at the scoping meeting, and even if you don't have a question, you might come up with a question that you can submit later and see what the responses will be. So public comments. If you can't make a meeting, you can submit them to edhapac.comment@gmail.com. Meet at 5 o'clock Monday before the scheduled Wednesday meeting. This is a weird day. And then our next meeting is, oh, well, I didn't change it. So Time Machine, our next meeting is actually Valentine's Day.
Yep.
And
Yay.
I'm still hearing about that.
It'll be a
So,
short one, right?
yes, so, so it would be Wednesday, it'd be the January 14th, 6:30 PM here in this room, unless there's nothing to talk about, and then we'll cancel the meeting.
Hey, oh.
And so, and then, you know, we could all get Valentine's cards, but, so if there's nothing to go back to, 8:31, that's 2 hours and 1 minute.
Yeah, it was a short
Not bad.
meeting.
Meeting adjourned.
Congratulations, John.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I gotta do all the work over here now. And I gotta stop recording. Okay,
That's the important thing.
okay. Oh, thank you. So you can take tomorrow off.